Hello, my name is Andrew with Pack Radio. We are a two-way radio shop based out of Los Angeles, California. And in today's video, I wanted to answer a few frequently asked questions and give you some information which would help you choose the best two-way radio solution for your business. So a bit of the information we're going to be covering in this video is whether or not you should be going with UHF or VHF radio, whether or not you need a radio with a display, and whether you should go with digital or analog technology. Now with that being said, let's jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to start off with is what frequency you should get your radios in. Now these radios do come in a bunch of different frequencies, however for business use, the frequencies you're going to want to focus on are VHF and UHF. And picking between VHF and UHF is very simple. All you have to do is take a look at your surroundings and what setting you're going to be using your radio in. If you live in a city or densely populated urban area with lots of buildings, you're going to want to go through with UHF radios because UHF tends to penetrate concrete better, it functions better inside of buildings, and in that kind of environment you are definitely going to get much more range out of a UHF radio than a VHF radio. Now VHF comes in the exact opposite kinds of environments. So VHF is typically best used in an open area, let's say a farm, or in just an area that isn't heavily populated like LA. So if there aren't a lot of tall buildings around, or if your communications aren't going to be happening within buildings, then VHF is the way to go because it will provide a substantial range increase over UHF while out in the open. The next thing you're going to want to look at is wattage output. Now, as you've probably guessed, this is the amount of power that the radio will put out, and the higher amount of wattage output, the better the range, and the lower amount of wattage output, the lower the range. So typically the larger handheld radios have a 4 to 5 watt output, and the smaller radios like the SL7550 that you see in the middle here only has a 2 to 3 watt output. This decrease in wattage output will substantially decrease the range of the radios, so if you're not using this radio as a part of a system and you're only using these radios to talk to one another without a repeater, then you should only be expecting a range of about a mile, if that. Now for the larger radios with the 4 to 5 watt outputs, if you're in a crowded area with a lot of buildings and are using a UHF radio for direct-to-direct talk around, then you can expect a 3-mile range using analog protocol and a 4-mile range using digital protocol. Now this leads us to our next topic, which is whether you should go with analog or digital. So if you're looking at it from a functionality standpoint, there is literally no benefit to going analog over digital nowadays. On top of this, support for analog radios is being phased out, and analog radios have lower range, less capabilities, and are more prone to getting interfered with. The only time I would ever suggest you use the analog protocol is if you're renting out radios, as obviously analog radios are cheaper to rent out at this time, so it's definitely cost effective there. But again, if you're purchasing radios, I would definitely go with digital as it doubles your capacity, extends your range, increases privacy and durability, and the digital portable radios are only about $20 more expensive than their analog counterparts. A lot of times, however, people will doubt the claims that digital provides better range and audio over its analog counterparts. So for that reason, I've actually decided to do a range test here with 3 radios. Please note, all these radio tests were done within a few minutes of each other, all at the same location, all the radios were UHF, and all the radios had a 4 watt power output. I did also take the antennas off of all the radios just so I didn't have to travel as far to get into the fringe zone. With that being said, let's get into the range test.
This is an analog radio test in good signal conditions. This is an analog radio test in good signal conditions. Digital radio test of the new audio receiver in good signal conditions. Digital radio test of the new audio receiver in good signal conditions. Digital radio test of the old audio receiver in good signal conditions. Digital radio test of the old audio receiver in good signal conditions. Radio check of the digital radio with the old audio receiver. Old audio receiver. Radio 345 54321. Radio check 1 2 3 4 5. Radio check 4321. Testing, and testing is now over for the old digital audio receiver. This is a digital radio check of the new audio receiver. Digital radio check of the new audio receiver outside of garage number 4. Again, same conditions as before. Clear day, sunny skies. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, digital radio test of the new audio receiver outside of garage number 4.
So as you can see from that test, both digital radios, the enhanced and the non-enhanced radio, were able to easily beat out the analog radio in the range test, which is one of the many reasons why I recommend going with digital over analog. Now that we've gotten that sorted out, we can move on to the display or no display option. So having a display on an analog radio really isn't necessary, as there aren't many features that the analog radio can utilize the display for. But now that digital radios have come out with features like texting and private calling, having a display can really be an advantage and a time saver. So basically, determining whether you need a display is quite simple. If you want your radios to be able to make private calls to other radios or send text messages to other radios, you're going to need a display. And in order to read a text message, you're obviously going to need a display. However, in order to receive a private call, you don't need a display. An example of what a lot of our customers do is they give a display radio to a supervisor, as he's the only one who needs to be initiating private calls to other staff members, and then staff members who don't need to initiate private calls will get a non-display radio, as those can still receive private calls, they just won't be able to initiate them. Another reason you may want a radio with a display is that it gives the user out in the field much more flexibility when it comes to toggling settings within the radio. And this can really save a lot of time, as you don't have to reprogram the radio every time you want to make a small change. Overall, the display just helps the end user stay more aware of their radio and what channel it's on and what battery life is remaining. But if your radios only need a couple channels and are getting charged between every 8-hour shift, I would say that a display is not necessary. And now for the final segment of the video, what radio you should choose for your business when you're migrating from analog to digital. So a lot of times we get customers who don't want to replace their entire analog fleet with digitals, either for personal preferences or budget purposes, but instead they want to gradually phase out their analog system by replacing the radios with digital radios. This is 100% possible, as all Moto Turbo digital radios, with the exception of the SL7550, are capable of analog and digital function. This means that you can have the digital radios communicate to the analog radios on one channel, and then all the digitals can communicate to each other on another channel. This is also the case for repeaters, so if you had a larger system with an existing analog infrastructure, all you have to do is pull out the old repeater, put in the new Moto Turbo repeater, and that Moto Turbo repeater will be able to do analog and digital function at twice the capacity while utilizing the old infrastructure and antennas that your old analog repeater was using. I hope this video was able to help you when it comes to choosing the best radio solution for your business. If you need any other additional help or have any other questions, please feel free to contact us at our website. Links, as always, are in the description below. Thank you for watching.